I'll just start with the top and bottom line. We're seeing 89 cents adjusted for earnings per share. That is 5 cents higher than what the street anticipated, up 82% from a year ago. So it is decelerating, but still higher. On revenues of $39.3 billion, that is higher than the street anticipated. And I'm also seeing data center revenue coming in at $35.6 billion. The street was anticipating 33, so also a slight beat. We'll get back to you with the guidance.
It looks like we've got some pretty bullish commentary from Jensen Huang in the release as well. And I know we're going to go back to Christina Partsinevelos right now for more from these results. Christina.
Well, just to your point, that bullish commentary, he said, quote, "We've successfully ramped up the massive scale production of Blackwell AI supercomputers." There was concern about the ramp and any delays. We'll get more from the CFO commentary. But I'd like to point out, though, for Q1 revenue guidance, that's coming in at $43 billion. That is higher than the street anticipated. Keep in mind, NVIDIA only guides one quarter at a time. But the non-GAAP Q1 gross margins, that's coming down 71%. So it was 73.5 in Q4. Now it's going to be 71 in Q1. The street was anticipating 72. So that could have been why you saw a little bit of the stock dip right immediately after earnings. Management did warn it would go down and then come back up in the second half of the year around 75%. Guys?
All right, Christina, thank you. Paul, we were talking about it earlier in the show, the possibility of a triple play for NVIDIA. It looks like we got that here, but to Christina's point, maybe the non-GAAP gross margin guidance hindering it a little bit.
Yeah, that's a little bit low, but as she said, they're forecasting a pickup in the second half, so that would be a good thing. I think more important than the conference call is going to be the interview at 7 o'clock with John, because hopefully John can flesh out more details on more than a quarter ahead as far as guidance is concerned. But I think the reaction here is the stock's up a little bit. What we've seen with NVIDIA since last summer is multiple rallies ending on a positive day and then an intraday reversal, indicating investors selling into strength. So I think the real key that I'll be watching is tomorrow. How does that stock react? Do we see strength, or if we do see strength in the morning, does it immediately get sold off? And if it does, that'll just tell us that the stock continues to be in a distribution mode rather than under accumulation.
Well, if anybody can extract information that's going to matter to the markets, it's John Fort.
Well, thank you, Morgan. Paul, I will do my best. Pat, it's wild to me that we're talking about gross margins in the 70s as being a little low. How much, put it into context for what semiconductor margins usually are, how much do we have to expect that during the ramp of a new product there will be some fluctuation?
I mean, listen, anything in the 70s is outstanding. And the fact that we're nitpicking over a few percents, and yes, I know it makes a difference, is very interesting to me. I've shipped a lot of products in my prior life, and I will tell you that when you are working as hard as you can to get products out, you typically will spend more to make that happen. So there's likely some accelerated ordering of things that NVIDIA needs to do to get Blackwell ready. And remember, this is not just shipping some cards out. NVIDIA is shipping rack scale system that includes not only cards and chips from networking and GPUs and CPUs, but also cabling and the racks themselves. So accelerating, I think the street much rather see a beat in the forecast and more confidence around Blackwell as long as the margins don't get too out of hand. And I'm not saying a few points doesn't matter. It does. But if the story that comes out on the call is that, investors should be happy that they are where they are. And industry-leading margins, again, I'll reiterate, are in the 70s.
Mike, I want to get your thoughts on this, especially since coming into this print, NVIDIA was down something like 7% since the last earnings report. It's down 17% from the January high that we saw early in that month. We know the AI trade, the tech trade, perked up a little bit in the market today, but in general, we've seen quite a rotation. We've seen a lot of profit taking. Your takeaway from the results we've gotten so far and how it speaks to this broader ecosystem?
Yeah, I think, Morgan, the market has been keeping the AI theme on a shorter leash. I don't think it's ever going to lengthen back out to where it was a year ago, meaning that everybody involved, the spenders and the vendors, were all benefiting and getting massive valuation premiums because it was just a huge bonanza. These results from NVIDIA, as good as they are in absolute terms, they show this company is beyond the point of being able to dazzle and outpace even people's imagination. $42 billion in the current quarter guidance for revenue, plus or minus 2%, is a rounding error versus the consensus. It's a good, reaffirmation of the trend. And I think that we've kind of gotten this funny game. I saw some sell-side commentary saying, well, they're probably going to beat top line by $1.8 billion, but they're going to get back to their $2 billion quarterly beat rate after this. Well, why not just raise your estimates if you think that's what it's going to be? But I think it's kind of funny that we're at this point where expectations are pretty well in balance. The stock is pretty well in balance. A lot of people burned a lot of option premium betting on a massive move. We might get it over the next 2 days, but it's just fascinating that we've almost reached a state of maturity in this theme where the company is delivering, but no longer just completely wowing everybody with the magnitude of it.
Yeah, Stephanie, I wonder what you make of that. Mike mentions the options. It gives you the visual of a coiled spring could move 10% one way or the other, but it's not doing that yet. Granted, we're only 10 minutes into the overtime trade.
I mean, I just don't think if you're bullish on this name and you own this name, you're going to sell it on this news. I mean, I think the quarter was actually quite good. As mentioned, data center revenues, this is why you own this company, right? And data center revenues to grow 12% sequentially, that is really, for a company of this size, that's really amazing. We all knew about the margins. We were all kind of bracing for 71, 72% margin and guidance to be for margins flat. And the ramp from Blackwell in the second half of the year will get them higher margins. That's exactly what they're telling you. So you have better revenue, you have margins going higher, you got operating leverage on the bottom line. And by the way, it's one of the cheaper names in the kind of the data center world. If you think about 33 times and you think about 78 times for ARM and 38 times for Marvell, even Broadcom, which I own, is at 34 times. So it's gotten a little bit cheaper and they're still delivering. I think this is still a good story for the long haul.
Well, we want to get back to Christina Parts-Nevelis with more on this report. Christina.
Yeah, well, speaking of delivering $11 billion of Blackwell in Q4, that's what they're saying in the CFO remarks from Colette Kress. So that's $11 billion of Blackwell happening and delivered in Q4. That's the fastest ramp that they've seen. So go towards Steph's point that they could continue to ramp up in the second half of this year. I'd like to point out they break it down into categories. We talked about data center because that's over 80% of revenues, but gaming was a concern. Gaming GPUs have come down in price. We're seeing that a little bit weaker than what the street anticipated at 2.5 versus the 3 billion anticipated. So there's some, and also professional visualization, another category. It's much smaller, but gaming is one that just stood out.
I'm still going through the earnings report, but initially I'm very pleased with the results. Next quarter guidance came in well above consensus at $43 billion. The ramp of Blackwell appears to be going better than expected, and I'm looking forward to hearing both the earnings call and then hearing from Jensen Huang again later tonight. More NVIDIA content will be posted later today, so be on the lookout for that. Please leave a like on this video so more people will see it. And while you're down there, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.